Hi, this is Andy Filipiuk in Toronto for the week of January the 13th. A couple of days ago, I heard an interesting discussion on an article that Alan Greenspan wrote in the 1960s called Gold and Economic Freedom. And I'd read the article in the past, but I thought I'd reread it. And I must admit, it is so applicable to what we are seeing today. Basically, Greenspan argued that under a gold standard, the amount of money or credit in the system was limited by the amount of gold you had. And this, in effect, gold acted as an anchor on credit creation, meaning you couldn't print money too fast or at a greater rate because you had to have a comparable amount of gold. And so the thinking began to come, why not just let the banks run the credit cycle, not have the tightness of gold, and we wouldn't have to go through bad downturns where credit tightened. But more importantly, and Greenspan wrote this article in 1966, was that the growing role of government in society was a real issue with the Vietnam War and social programs that Lyndon Johnson was bringing in. The government was getting larger and larger, and Greenspan argued that the people who were in favor of a larger government, those on the left that wanted more and more social programs, were in favor of getting rid of gold because there's only two ways to pay for all of these social programs. It's through taxes, but unfortunately taxes don't raise nearly enough. So the other way you pay for it is inflation, meaning you create money faster than the economy's growing, and the cost of government is then absorbed through the inflation. So for example, and the Federal Reserve would basically in a way, print money. And I'll try to tie that to now. For example, the U.S. government has a $23 trillion economy, but it's estimated that in 2020, they will have a $1 trillion deficit. So if the U.S. government wanted to raise $1 trillion worth of bonds, the market would have to absorb this, and that would be very tough because money would have to come from other investments to buy the bonds. And with interest rates so low, interest rates would have to rise to attract such buyers. But the government can't have that happen because there's so much debt in the system, a rising borrowing cost would inevitably slow the economy. So what they do is they monetize the debt. To keep it as short and simple as possible, the government will issue $1 trillion worth of debt, and the Federal Reserve will buy those bonds with money they've printed out of thin air. The government gets to spend that money first, and the end result is that money's growing much faster than the economy is. And if you look at it, a $1 trillion deficit is equal to about 4.3% of the US GDP. And if the US economy is only growing at 2%, how real is that growth if they're having to borrow 4.3% of new money to keep the game going? So this is a very important article and why one wants to own gold, because inevitably all credit bubbles burst. And what will happen, there will be a move out of printed money back into gold. As well, and this isn't in the article, but the European Central Bank and the Japanese government are doing the exact same things as the US government. In effect, they've even taken it one step further where they've bought so many bonds, they're now buying equities on their own exchange. The Japanese Central Bank is one of the major owners of all US or all Japanese equity. So this article is a good learning lesson as to explaining why gold is important in a system, and more importantly, especially now, why it's important in your portfolio. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Thanks for watching.